Okay, we're live.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yes.
Call the meeting to order. It's 4:02 on June 17th. And we'll do a roll call.
I can do the roll call. Commission Chair Larry Bernofsky.
Here.
Commission Vice Chair John Barry.
Present.
Commissioner Brad Barry.
Present.
Commissioner John Salagoy.
Present.
Commissioner Corey Little. Commissioner Liz Kaplan.
Here.
Commissioner Charles McDermott.
Present.
All right. Next is the Aviation Director's report. Gary?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the Commission. Welcome to this somewhat face-to-face / Zoom meeting on 17th of June. It's been a while. Appreciate you guys taking the time out for the folks that can make it here and then the folks on the phone as well. Obviously, it's been quite an interesting 2020. This is a very unprecedented pandemic. We got a lot to talk to you about, lots of updates, so I'm not going to go too deep into it during the Aviation Director's report because we really can't discuss anything. The only comment I would like to make is with regards to general aviation airports in the country when the COVID-19 hit, we can say very proudly that we fared fairly well compared to my similar airports in the country like Morristown, Van Nuys, White Plains, and folks like that. We'll be going to all of those details in this meeting. We'll be talking a little bit about our operational numbers, our finances, and all of that, but I can tell you that we had a blip, but we're bouncing back pretty solid for Scottsdale. As you can probably, the folks that are here could look out the window, and we did a pretty good job. None of our FBO operators asked or received any rental relief that was authorized or able to provide per the FAA guidance, so that's a good sign as well for us, and we're moving forward. So with that, we have, like I said, a lot of meat in the document, so we'll just go and dive into that. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
All right. So next is approval of last meeting's minutes. Do I hear any discussion on the minutes or a motion to approve?
I move that we approve the minutes. Second.
Please make sure you state your name so they know.
I, Vice Chairman John Barry, move we approve the minutes. Commissioner Salagoy, seconds.
All right. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Do we need a roll call? Or?
Yes, we need a roll call. Ms. Williams, could you do the roll call?
Commission Chair Larry Bernofsky.
Yes.
Commission Vice Chair John Barry.
Aye.
Commissioner Brad Barry.
Aye.
Commissioner John Salagoy.
Aye.
Commissioner Corey Little, are you on? Commissioner Liz Kaplan.
Aye.
Commissioner Charles McDermott.
Aye.
All right, moving on to the next item, the consent agenda, which is something new for me anyway at this meeting. So we have 5 items that are up for consent, and we vote on all of them, as I understand, on one vote. If there are any minor questions or clarifications that are needed, I think we have folks standing by to answer anything. So with that, is there any comments or questions by anybody on the consent items? Nope. I got one on the, doesn't apply to any vendor, I guess, but I guess at some point you mentioned about adding some nice language about noise abatement to the permit process at some point.
Mr. Chair, members of the Commission, yes, one of our application processes that we're including is just a conversation with any flight training, aircraft leasing, and rental operator, that if they are going to be a new business, we want to remind them and inform them about our noise abatement procedures in our community and that sensitivity to around the airport.
Good, okay, thank you.
Okay, Carmen, have you reviewed all these? Everything's fine?
Yes, yes. All of the companies, and they're all represented on the phone tonight, they've submitted the documentation for their specific ABP, and all been.
Everything's fine?
Yep.
There's one, I guess, what type of aircraft training? I guess there was for Leopard?
Mr. Chair, if you're wanting questions, you're gonna have to pull that item then.
Okay, well, okay, they're not important questions, so.
Okay.
If no other questions, then we'll go on to a vote. So do we hear a motion to approve all 5 items on the consent agenda?
Vice Chair Barry, I move we can confirm all items 1 through 5 on the consent agenda. Commissioner Sullivan, seconds.
All in favor?
I'll do it. Commission Chair Larry Bernowski,
Yes. Aye.
Commission Vice Chair John Barry,
Yes.
Commissioner Brad Barry,
Aye.
Commissioner John Salagoy,
Aye.
Commissioner Corey Little, not present, Commissioner Liz Kaplan,
Aye.
Commissioner Charles McDermott.
Yes.
Okay, 6-0. Thank you.
Thank you. So moving then on to the regular agenda, item 6, discussion and possible action to adopt resolution number 11836, authorizing contract number 20 Papa Bravo 032 with Combs Construction, Inc. in the amount of $736,703.25 for the Scottsdale Airport Delta Rehab Phase 2 and improvements. Staff contact Chris Reed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. This is our typical annual construction project that we typically use with FAA and ADOT funding. It's got 3 components to it. The biggest part is down on the Delta apron. I don't know if we got the picture. Sarah's hurrying to the picture. So down there on the Delta apron, as you know, we have a new FBO coming online. So we have an old taxiway, Alpha 2, taxiway connector, I should say. We're gonna go ahead and pull that out. We're gonna install a new connector that's a little bit further north, which is more user-friendly for getting in and out of that ramp for the FBO. Also gonna do a little bit of drainage improvement, and we have to move just a small segment of the perimeter road down there. So that's the first segment. The second segment is a little bit of work on what we call the taxiway Charlie over on the east side of the airport. And so we're going to do just a very small segment over there, and we're going to reconstruct that. It's having some issues with falling apart, a little bit of pavement shoving and so forth. So that's the second phase or piece of this project, and then the Bravo 5 repair, small repair out at Bravo 5 taxiway where we're getting a little bit of ponding after rain. So the difference with these different segments is the first part, the Delta apron, that's being funded 100% with FAA grant funding. The second 2 pieces, we're going to go ahead and fund those with our aviation funds, 100%. So with that, if there's any questions, I'm glad to answer them.
And so this would be done upon approval, started by approval of the council?
Correct. After this body, it would go to the city council for final approval.
And then, but then construction shortly after. I mean, there's not a lag till it starts, is there?
Typically, there's a little bit of lag while the contractor gets the materials and
Yeah.
submittals in and things like that.
Okay.
Usually about a month after award that we get going on these types of projects.
Thank you. Any other questions? Move to, we did discussion, any move to adopt this resolution? Do I hear a motion?
Yeah, Vice Chair Barry, I move to adopt that resolution, number 6.
Mr. Sullivan, seconds.
Okay, and a roll call?
Commission Chair Larry Bernowski,
Yay?
Commission Vice Chair John Barry,
Aye.
Commissioner Brad Barry,
Aye.
Commissioner John Salagoy,
Aye.
Commissioner Liz Kaplan,
Aye.
Commissioner Charles McDermott.
Yes.
Next item is number 7, is discussion and possible action to adopt resolution 11837, authorizing contract manager at risk contract 2020-104-Charlie Oscar Sierra, yes, with Joe Bannicky Construction, Inc., for pre-construction services in the amount of $112,539 for the Scottsdale Airport Runway Rehabilitation Project. Staff contact, Chris Reed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. Got a little bit more of an exciting project here. So this is our first move towards doing a major reconstruction of our runway. I think I talked about it a little bit at the last meeting, whenever the heck that was, 3-4 months ago. So this is the pre-construction phase where we selected through an RFQ process a company called J. Bannicky Construction. And what they'll do is they'll work with the design team to go through the plans, come up with constructability reviews, value engineering, and then at the end, after the plans are all 100% ready to go, then they'll actually go ahead and bid out the work through subcontractors. And after they do that, they establish what we call a GMP, or guaranteed maximum price. So the selection of Bannicky took place in accordance with the Arizona State revised statutes, I should say. We had to have at least 5 people, 3 of which were city staff, were familiar with the process and the project, and we had to have a construction executive, and then finally a professional engineer. So this particular phase of the project is going to be funded with a 90% grant from ADOT, and the Aviation Enterprise Fund will contribute the remaining 10% towards this pre-construction phase. Just to hit a little bit into the details of the project down the road after this phase is complete. Early engineering is looking at removing 3 inches of existing runway pavement, putting back 5 inches of new pavement, replacing the runway shoulders and blast pads, and then the runway lighting will have to be adjusted up a little bit, because if you take off 3 and put back 5, you're going to bring your lighting up a little bit. So no new lighting, we just did that, as you may recall, just going to be moving lights around and up a little bit. This will be a pretty good runway closure, 24/7, and for right now, it's looking about 4 weeks. But part of the pre-construction phase efforts will be to work with Jay Bannicky to figure out how to reduce that time as much as we can. Sarah's going to start an outreach program so that everybody, there's absolutely no surprise when this project hopefully takes place, depending on grants, next summer of 2021 in our slowest month. So with that, I'll take any questions.
Yeah, Commissioner Barry, are you going to increase the load capability of the runway with this work?
Commissioner Barry, no, this is not increasing the weight bearing capacity. It's the same.
And how about budget-wise for the airport operations with no income per month? How's that going to affect operations, Gary?
Mr. Chair, Vice Chair Barry, we don't anticipate major impacts. We'll be prepared in our budget. That's July, so that's 2 budgets from now. It is our slowest month, so we'll be okay with managing it financially.
Chris, is there going to be provisions in the contract once you get that far for penalties for time completion? This is a tight time frame.
Right, Commissioner Barry, yes, we definitely do liquidated damages for a project like this. It will come up, they'll be greater than MAG spec. It's like $1,000 an hour in the morning, or excuse me, every day, it could be like $10,000 a day. So they'll be pretty steep liquidated damages.
Good. Needs to be done. It's time.
Yes, we've been overlaying it. We overlaid it 99 and then 2011. This is the time where it really needs to be redone and done it'll be a 20-year lifespan, so Gary may still be here one point.
Oh, thank you.
You're valid like last time.
So some of the customers, like in the air park, are they gonna move their aircraft part of this, or?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, that's typical, and that's why we reach out so far in advance, so we can plan, find another airport to go put the airplane at for the 4 weeks, and, operate out of there. Some folks, if they're, putting their airplane out for an annual or something like that, they'll send a jet during that time. So they'll do things like that, but yeah, typically they'll move.
Oh. All right, thank you. Any other discussion?
No, Commissioner Vice Chair Barry, I move that we approve agenda item 7 to hire Bennett. Commissioner Soto seconds.
Okay, and roll call?
Commission Chair Larry Bernard,
Yes?
Commission Vice Chair John Barry,
Aye.
Commissioner Brad Barry,
Aye.
Commissioner John Sologoy,
Aye.
and I heard that Commissioner Corey Little is possibly on the phone.
Yes, aye. I'm here.
Commissioner Liz Hack,
Aye.
Commissioner Charles McDermott.
Yes.
7-0.
Okay. Moving on to item 8, discussion and possible action to adopt ordinance number 4452 to amend the airport's primary guiding documents. Staff contact, Gary Muscaro.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. Something that we like to do every couple of years is evaluate what we call our primary guiding documents. That's Chapter 5 of the Scottsdale Revised Code, which gives us the authority per the council to operate the airport the way we do, and created this commission. Within that, adopted by reference are other documents that we have that helps us operate and maintain this airfield safely, as well as business operations, which is our airport rules and regs, air park rules and regs, which is the private property that have the through the fence access, as well as our airport and air park minimum operating standards, which is the minimum guidelines for businesses that want to operate at this airport or in the air park. With that being said, what we did is we went around as a round table internally, staff, including our airport operations folks, the folks that live and breathe it every day, and I called it the Director's Challenge, to say, let's take a look at our rules and regs, and let's see if we can make any changes, adjustments, cleanups, as we like to discuss, and let's move this forward to get these adjustments made. One of the nice parts about these documents is they are living documents, and they should always be adjusted depending on the situation. So I would tell you as a key consideration that most of these are cleanups and clarifications. Some items need to be deleted, like for example, we reference a terminal. We don't have a terminal anymore, things of that nature. Why we have an ordinance, any changes that we as this commission would like to make in Chapter 5 of the Scottsdale Revised Code must be in ordinance format and must be approved by the City Council. But they won't do any changes without this recommendation to Chapter 5. So that's why you only see Chapter 5 in the ordinance in part of your packet. The rest of the primary guiding documents can be adjusted directly here without the approval of the council, which would be made. So you had those documents in your packet, and I would be happy to answer any questions that you may have on any of that.
Vice Chair Barry, I think it's a good idea to have wheelchairs categorized as pedestrians. Was that an ADA requirement that just got missed years ago, or? Just curious.
Mr. Chair, Vice Chair Barry, to be honest with you, I'm not sure why it was or was not, but we did
Good idea.
incorporate it. I think that was probably something the attorney helped us out with.
Yeah, good point.
Chair Bernowski, question on mentions about explosives other than those approved by the aviation director. What explosives are necessary for aircraft ops and maintenance?
Could you reference specifically the section so I can look it up?
Yeah, it's page 7 of 20. Section 211, subsection B1.
What document? Air Park minimum standard? Which particular document? So I can get to it right away.
Airport rules and regulations, it says.
Airport rules, okay.
Air park.
Air park rules, those are different. And 221, explosives?
Right.
That is because in the air park, we have entities that actually deal with explosives, particularly Dillon Precision, which is in the air park, and they do ammunition, as well as we used to have Cirrus aircraft, and they use explosives to launch the parachutes, so that's what that particular section's for.
Okay.
I knew the answer, I just didn't know what section you were on.
Let's talk about a pilot needing to have a self-fueling permit. Does each pilot, if they're gonna use that, or does that go with the FBO, or?
If you're, Mr. Chair, members of the commission, if you're specifically talking about the air park rules and regulations, yes, every operator that wants to fuel out of a self-service fuel farm out of there, they would need to sign a permit, and we would authorize that permit to allow them to fuel in the air park.
Thank you.
Vice Chair Barry, I move we approve agenda item number 8, and chapter 5, the code.
Do we have a second?
Mr. Sologo, seconds.
Okay, roll call vote.
Commission Chair Larry Bernowski,
Yay?
Commission Vice Chair John Barry,
Aye.
Commissioner Brad Barry,
Aye.
Commissioner John Selagoy,
Aye.
Commissioner Corey Little,
Aye.
Commissioner Liz Kaplan,
Aye.
Commissioner Charles McDermott.
Aye.
Good. 7-0. Okay. Moving on to number 9. I think that's what we got. Discussion and input regarding quarterly noise complaint summary report. Staff contact Sarah Ferrara. Sarah?
Thank you, Chair and Commissioners. I'd like to present the quarterly noise complaint report. This report covers the time period January 1st through March 31st, 2020. It's our typical noise report thing. Before I kind of hit into the report, I'll say the staff response for this last quarter has been callbacks have amounted to 41, emails 5, for a total of 46 responses from staff. I think that's important to share. On the first page of the quarterly noise report, we'll see the complainant summary. So these are the number of complainants. And how we divide it is the 43 are new complainants for the quarter, 56 of those numbers are repeat complainants for the quarter. Kind of significant, 43% of new complainants. And you'll kind of see that on the grid as we get to the grid page of kind of how it's splayed out and shows some of the new ones. For the first quarter, we always compare it to the same quarter of last year. So for 2020, we had 422 complaints. For 2019, it was 612, so there was nice to see a reduction. I will note that, you know, one less complainant who was very active, that's probably kind of showing in the numbers here right now. As we get to the grid, and this is probably, I think, some of the most useful information because it kind of plots out the different complainant numbers and the complaints, as you'll see, and I'll say this on behalf of our new commissioner too. The first number on top is the number of complainants in that square mile grid for Scottsdale. The bottom number is the number of complaints that we received. So it kind of puts it into perspective of, you know, how many complainants versus how many complaints we're getting in that grid. I went ahead and kind of circled just a few that I kind of noted. I usually try to analyze like those hot spots and kind of compare them. And when I did that, I noted some of the higher numbered grid lines, and they're pretty much very similar from last quarter. So we're kind of seeing the same thing. In fact, we've seen some decreases, and like J2, you'll see that the numbers actually decreased like by 45% from the same time last quarter. There was also a decrease in E4. The last year we had 46. This year we're having 4. I circled F6 because that might be a name. That's the Stonebrook neighborhood. And interestingly enough, it was pretty much the same as last year as far as number of complainants and the number of complaints, just very similar. And there's a little bit of increase in the two areas, B8 and D8. So that kind of references some of the new complaints in there. All I could draw from those complaints is it's probably related to some increased flight training activity too, especially kind of seeing in proximity how close they are to the airport.
Sir,
Yes.
Commissioner Sullivan, so when you have a single, let's say, neighborhood or HOA group collaborate, how does that show up in the data? Do you treat it as new, repeat, clustered as 30 or 5 or?
So the complainants are by person or individual. So technically, really, if somebody wanted to, if you have 2 people in the household, they could be counted as 2 complainants in the same household. So as long as they create a new account, it goes by their name, address, and phone number. So we don't really count it as an association. It would be by the number of people who actually, lodged the complaint.
Yes, sir, I'm just curious, this lecture bearing on B10. I mean, that's down Tatum and Shea. That's not even in our pattern.
I have 2.
That's not in our pattern, I've never flown over that way.
They seem to, every once in a while, get some flights from us. And again, keep in mind that there's 2 complaints in that whole thing. When I get those noise complaints, they're just about increased flight and low altitude. But I am not sure, I don't have this drill down to the actual specifics of the 82, but.
It's just a long ways away, our patterns.
I imagine some of them are some overflight, some helicopter activity as well.
Yeah.
That concludes my report unless there are any additional questions.
But anyway, I guess everybody saw the staff's report responding to Stonebrook. I thought it was very well done, and hopefully it'll be interesting if they get any response from them. But, well done. I've captured it very well, and good language for maybe soothing any nerves.
Well, in general, the complaints are down.
Yeah, overall, as you can see kind of from the comparison, we're at 122.
Especially out here.
Oh, yeah, and even if you look historically, keep in mind, I think the biggest factor, and I'll point to it since most of our commissioners were here from the last time, we did have one complainant who was reporting 100 a quarter or a month.
Yeah.
So, unfortunately, I'm not sure what transpired, but we're not receiving those complaints at this time. So that's kind of a factor too to know. But overall, the complaints are lower in numbers even.
I just went over to Stonebrook and kind of just sat there in the car and listened, and didn't hear much. And a couple of aircraft, but they're quite out of the area. So again, not exhaustive. I didn't sit there for 3 days, but enough to see some traffic. So thank you.
Thank you.
Number 10, discussion and input regarding airport and air park aeronautical business permit additions, cancellations, and revocations. Staff contact, Carmen Williams.
Thank you, Chair Bernowski and Commissioners. So the latest report is probably the most colorful report and you've seen in a while, but you've got that, it's going to go back to our last meeting, so it's covering the past few months. So the 5 new aeronautical business permits that were approved this evening are shown on the list in green. We've had 3 ABP cancellations on the airport side. We had 4 ABP cancellations on the air park side since our meeting in February. They are not all related to the COVID situation. 4 out of those canceled ABPs occurred back in late January and February.
Were these self-canceled or canceled by the?
These are our self-cancellations. We haven't done any revocations recently. These are all ABP holders that have voluntarily canceled it for a reason or another. Any questions about the list or?
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, number 11, discussion and input regarding financial reports for January to April 2020. Staff contact, Carmen Williams.
Thank you very much. Chair Bernowski and Commissioners, in your packets you have the monthly financial report covering January through April 2020. But what I'll do is concentrate on the most recent report covering April. I will start off by saying we did see some impact to our monthly budget these past couple of months due to COVID. We do continue to see some impacts in certain areas, but overall, we are doing okay. The staff have done an excellent job over the past couple months looking at the expenses and keeping those down low as we finish up our fiscal year. So June is the last month of our fiscal year. And I do check the financial reports every couple of days, and we're going to be pretty close to being on target with our budget, despite some of the areas that slowed down. The last 2 weeks in March and then the first part of April is when we started seeing some impacts for us. For example, we shut down the Aviation Business Center building to the general public following the closure of the Volante restaurant and our airport administration offices. March is typically one of our busiest months, if not the busiest one. So we did start to see some revenue impacts from the restaurant being shut down, as well as some of the meeting events that we had scheduled. We had to cancel those. Then in March, on the 21st, we had the closure of the borders with Canada and Mexico. So probably the greatest impact that we've seen is through our customs inspections. That went down tremendously. We're still seeing those impacts. The inspections have increased slightly, but with the border remaining closed for another month, it's still going to be very slow, I guess, compared to the normal activity that we would normally see. Fortunately, we are going into our hot summer months, so customs does slow down naturally.
We're there already, by the way. So.
I'm sorry?
We're in the hot summer months already.
We are already. On the flip side, we did have some expenses that we saw some savings in. For example, some of the planned conferences and training sessions that staff would have normally gone to, those were canceled, so we did see some savings in those areas. We also saw a new revenue stream that we didn't expect. So, for example, Hertz rental car needed space for 60 cargo vans very quickly, and so at the end of March, we were able to find them a place where they can park for a small revenue stream, but still, it was a good 3 months worth of revenues for us. Fortunately, prior to all of this starting, our January, February months were really strong for us, so it kind of allowed us to build this nice cushion. So as we started slowing down, we still have that cushion today, which I'm very happy to see that. So that's why I say, hopefully by the end of this fiscal year, we should be on track with our budget. So going to the April report, our fiscal year to date, up at the top right corner, we were at 4.57 million, and then we had 2 million in expenses. Fortunately for the year to date, we were above our budgeted revenues by 322,000, and then we were below our target for expenses by 234,000. So you can see we have that cushion of 557,000, which helps sustain us there for a little bit. The May reports.
Question,
Yeah.
I think I have too much time on my hands now with this COVID, but the April operations, it looks like the numbers in there for IFR was 4287. It looks like they were just carried over from March. I think.
Mr. Chair, that is the next report. We're on the finance report right now.
We're not talking, okay. Should I jump ahead? Okay, my bad.
No problem. Let's see, so we were covering the fiscal year to date. We do have that cushion for April. Then when we are looking at the April comparison to last April, which is not really a fair comparison, but we did have 466,000 in revenues for the month of April, which was lower than last year's revenues. So probably the big portion of that would be the customs inspections being lost. Expenses were slightly higher this year at 268 compared to 238,000 for last year, but we were actually on target. We were exactly, came in at what we had budgeted for the month, so I was happy to see that. On the left side of the report, you'll see our fund cash balance. As of April 30th, we're at 10.2 million. And then on the bottom portion, we've got the fuel flowage. So fuel is another area which we did take a hit for April and for May. But when you look at the April fuel flowage, what it really does represent is the March activity, because they will do the fuelings in March, but they have 3 weeks to submit their fees for that. So it's really March numbers that we're looking at. But you can see there was some impact to our fuel sales. The month of April was down 21.2% over last year. But surprisingly, for our year-to-date, we're actually just ahead by 1%. So again, that cushion really helps us on there. So the FBOs were doing some strong fuel sales early on in the year. That concludes the report for April. Again, I did look at May, and we're still doing really well. The activity is starting to pick up again. Any questions that I can answer covering April or any of the other months?
Anything else? Anybody on the phone? Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Let's see, number 12, discussion and input regarding monthly construction report, staff contact, Chris Reed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. The construction report has been resurrected. So first project, as you may recall, approving, I think, at the beginning of this year, or even at the very end of last year, is the box hangar project up on the Kilo ramp. So we're about 10% done. The 10% is based on billings, not necessarily what's been done on the ground. The work that we've done so far is demolition underground, utilities, footers, and right now they're out there working on a lot of masonry and concrete floors this month. So you can see, looking at the pictures, that's the demolition picture of the, if you recall, the wash rack up on the Kilo ramp. It was half wash rack, and then it was half pilot planning lounge. And over the years, as pilot planning was done on tablets and computers and stuff like that, that facility got very low use. So we tore that part of the building down and to give us a little bit more room for these new hangars. Next page, just showing some more general demolition of some walls and curbs and such. And then the picture of that on the right is the over-Xing of the area where the footers and the concrete floors are going to go. Bottom left is some shoring. That's actually something we didn't anticipate. We built so close to our neighbor's property line that we had to actually do some shoring so that their landscaping was not falling into our footer bowl net. And then some water line work there on the right. Next page, got a little plumbing work that'll be part of, there'll be a restroom in each one of these hangars. And then to the right of that, just showing the footers that have been poured, ready for some block. And then a little bit of block starting, and then more block going higher. So moving on to the next page with our future projects, which I already discussed in detail earlier. So with that, I'll take any questions.
Any questions? Anybody on the phone? Okay, thank you very much, Chris. Next, number 13, discussion and input regarding monthly ops report for May. Chris Reed.
I'm sorry. Hey, can we go back one quick question for Chris?
Sure.
How many of them are leased out, Chris? Of the box hangers?
Commissioner. That's Commissioner.
Commissioner Little?
Yep.
6 of the 7 hangars are leased out at this time.
Okay, thank you. Excellent.
Do you need a hangar?
Let's just go, he's got.
Need a plane first.
Okay.
Okay, monthly operations report, Chris Reed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. There was 3 or 4 months worth of reports in here. Just like Carmen, I'm going to focus on the last one. However, if you do have questions on any of the previous ones, please fire away. I picked up on the one that you saw there, Mr. Chairman. Looks like I inadvertently rolled a number from March to April. So the March number is actually correct with the 17,061 for total and 4284 for IFRs, whereas the April should be 2215 IFRs and 15592. That is shown on the attachment to this report. So anyway, we'll start with the based aircraft report at the beginning there. You can see the numbers of aircraft still look nice and healthy here. May not be flying quite as much, but they're here. Operations numbers are total for May compared to this year, obviously. The total numbers stayed okay because the flight schools just really did a lot of pattern work because they had them all the pattern to themselves. The jets weren't flying, so it was just a lot of pattern. The IFRs, that's where we took the hits there. So last year we had 4469 as compared to only 3885 this year for negative 13.1% drop. And also the year-to-date numbers are still not looking so hot at a negative 18.8%. Moving to the alerts, we had a few alert 2s, alert 1s for the month, incidents, just a lot of flat tires and small fuel leaks and so forth. We did have a little flare.
Go ahead.
Somebody asked a question?
Hey, Chris, it's Corey. I'm just looking at the report. I see the fuel spill due to a fueler error. As I recall, we've had issues with that in the past on other aircraft. And I don't know if I think the last one we had was at Ross, if I'm not mistaken. So when these occur, do we go out and educate or try to have some recurring education on the fueling procedures to make sure that doesn't happen again?
Yes, Commissioner Little, in that particular case that you're talking about, if it is clearly the fault of a fueler, they will actually have an enforcement action done on what they did. So if you look at the enforcements, it should be listed as fueling. I don't see it on the list. So was it one of the previous months that you were talking about?
May.
No, it was
Anyway,
March. It was March. So you have the March 10th was Challenger 600 fuel leak due to fueler error, Gemini ramp. And then I do see a March 10th fuel spill violation on the enforcement actions. It says verbal.
yes, that's the one. That's what I'm talking about. So if it is clearly the fueler screwed up, they get an enforcement action. Typically, first time verbal, second time written NOV, and third time we have the ability to actually write civil citations if it continues.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure. Had a little flare-up with touch and goes after hours for some reason. Not sure what was going on there. Actually, I was on vacation, so if anybody had any insight, feel free to chime in. But we did reach out to those flight schools and re-educate that, hey, no touch and goes after 9:30 p.m. and until 6 or 7 or something. So that has come back under control. Moving down to the U.S. Customs section.
Hey, Chris, I'm sorry. I got to ask a question real quick. Was it multiple flight schools or just one?
Commissioner Little, it was multiple flight schools.
Okay.
So you had information on the pilot aircraft?
Correct, yeah. Our overnight operations staff, they're really good at tracking the numbers and talking to the pilots. They'll actually,
CTAF.
if a pilot's inbound on CTAF and they call for touch and go, and our ops guys are on the radio or near the radio, they'll chase them off and tell them they can't do that. Every so often, if the guys are busy, they're able to sneak in, but we're good about getting tail numbers in flight schools. So. Okay, so the customs number, fiscal year to date, 508,525. Total uses for the month is only 30, one a day. That's pretty light for May. Total uses for the year, 942, and then the U.S. visit flights are way down at only 2, with 3 passengers on those 2 flights. And then the comparison, you can see how it reversed back in March. This year was doing better than last year, but with April and May, you can see that the numbers have switched. So, like I said, 508, 525 this year, fiscal year to date. Last year, 595, 305. And then you can see the total uses per month, big difference, 30 versus 85. And then total uses, fiscal year to date, only 942 this year, and we already had broken 1,000 this time last year. And then the PPRs for over 75,000 pound operations are at 17. And then the operational numbers for the past 16 months or so are attached, and I'll take any questions.
I'd like to add something, Mr. Chair, with regards to U.S. Customs and Border Protection. So with this global pandemic and the impacts to aviation and the industry, U.S. Customs and Border Protection decided to notify all user fee airports, and I'll explain what a user fee airport for folks who don't know, that they're going to adjust our costs associated with U.S. Customs agents upwards to full cost recovery. So what does that mean? So right now, as you probably know, some of you have been here a while, some brand new, we have what we call user fee service. The city of Scottsdale has a contract with U.S. Customs and Border Protection to pay for the service that's provided at cost. So we pay for the agent, we pay for their salaries, we built their facility, as you guys know, pay for everything. You name it, we pay for it. That was roughly about $124,000 a year for the actual agent. They informed us in mid-May, and we're not the only airport, there's 63 user fee airports in the entire country. They informed pretty much all of us scattered throughout that they are going to change from what the contract states of about $124,000 to full cost recovery. So we're like, what's full cost recovery mean? Well, they estimated now, instead of $123,000, it's about $174,000. And a decision needed to be made by the city within 3 days, what we wanted to do. So obviously, the service is recommended by the council, and we affirmed that with adding the additional body a couple of years ago. So we want to continue with the service. If you guys also remember, the council made clear direction to me and staff back in the day when I was here for my first stint, and when we updated it, that this service needs to be full cost recovery. So we charge a fee for every aircraft that lands here. So if you're a large jet, like Gulfstream, we charge $750 per landing, depending on the size airplane, depending on the size of the cost.
That's going up.
So what we're looking at right now, U.S. Customs gave us an opportunity, all the user fees, since we have 2 agents, or even if we had 1, we have the ability for the federal fiscal year 4th quarter to temporarily reduce our service from July 1st to September 30th. That's their 4th quarter of the federal fiscal year. I made the decision to go ahead and reduce our service down to 1 agent. We have 2. We have, I believe it's 10-hour days, 8-hour days, 7 days a week. I always forget how many. We have 7 days a week coverage. That I do know. We're going to go back to the old way, and the old way is when you were here. We had 1 agent. We're going to go Thursday through Mondays. I believe it's like 8 to 5. So we'll have 1 agent. The other agent's going to go back to Sky Harbor temporarily. We won't pay for that 1 agent. We'll just pay the full cost recovery of the agent that's here for the reduced time. Back on October 1, we're going to bring the agent back because we want to make sure we accommodate the needs of the users out here. During that time frame, and probably rolling more towards the fall and the winter, Carmen and I will be working on an evaluation of what these true costs are, and we're going to have to up the fees to do full cost recovery. So stay tuned, more information to follow. We're starting to track it now. We can tell you, Carmen did a great job with, I saw that spreadsheet, by the way. It appears that the large and the medium type aircraft are their predominant use, so that's a positive thing, which means we'll be able to increase those costs. The users absolutely love it. The impacts of COVID-19 also impacted us with the borders being closed, so it's a double whammy, as I called it. So we're going to kind of proceed forward with that. In addition to that, we've worked with our lobbying group. We went all the way to the Assistant Commissioner of U.S. Customs and Border Protection as an airport group to say, how could you do this last minute and all of that. The bottom line is we lost that battle because of federal demand. It doesn't allow customs to go bankrupt, basically, because of the impacts of COVID-19. They were running out of money and they had too many staff, so this is why they did the changes. But they did work with us by allowing us to reduce to one person, so we're only paying for the one person starting July 1 to October 1st. We'll be back to normal. Sarah's doing what she does best, her community outreach program. We're going to be launching that next day or two. We'll be reminding folks that we'll be reducing those hours. So I wanted to bring that to your attention in this meeting. But if you have any questions particular on that or anything Mr. Reed shared, I'd be happy to answer them.
So the cost increment is the staff, basically?
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, yes, it's the staffing costs right now. We did receive our fourth quarter invoice. It is definitely higher than what we anticipated. It accounts for 7 pay periods instead of 5, so it's a very goofy right now. So we're trying to really manage that.
So I'm wondering with regard to, you know, the numbers of cross-border flights is way down, that maybe they can reduce staff or have different hours or...
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Bernowski, we have the ability, the city, to choose the hours we want. The hours we're going to are the best hours based on all of our experiences. The problem is, we didn't want to reduce service to 0. We wanted to at least keep the 1. We believe as the border continues to stay closed, and our largest component is the Canadian traffic, we're not going to see a lot of activity. However, we're very lucky. This is our slow months, where like in folks like Naples, Florida, which has this user fee service, very similar airports, they're freaking out because their busy months are now, and they're getting crushed. So there's this big challenge. We're, knock on wood, lucky. We're hoping things will be better for the fall, and then we'll evaluate, make financial adjustments, bring it back to you guys for the fee changes, and then move forward from there.
Hey, Gary, question for you. This is Corey. So when you did this evaluation, did you, so for the hours that we don't have coverage, will not have coverage, flights that would normally fly into Scottsdale to clear customs will not have to go to another airport to clear customs, correct?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Little, we still have the ability, when U.S. Customs and Border Protection is available, to clear aircraft at any other time other than the posted hours with approval by Customs. So they do it by appointment. We have that ability now, so if they wanted to clear at midnight, they can call Customs, and if they're available, they'll come in. They'll be charged an overtime charge, which has been standard, but I'm pretty confident we have a wonderful relationship with the port director of Phoenix Tucson, that if we have an aircraft that wants to come in on a Wednesday or Thursday, they'll make sure somebody will be out here to clear. But those are typically our slowest days of the week.
Okay. So was there a trade-off analysis done? It's not going to cost us. So the trade-off would be you lose fuel sales, right? If you don't have those same flights coming in to clear customs. Is there any evaluation done or estimating done on how, if there's going to be any lost revenue due to reduced fuel sales? Is it not material?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Little, we didn't do any fuel sales evaluation because typically, as you are well aware, at the end of the day, if they have to clear in Tucson, they're still going to come to Scottsdale. So it's very negligible that they're just going to end up going to Sky Harbor. And again, the port director wants corporate jets to come here. So they typically authorize an agent to be available. And the 2 agents we have, as you're familiar with, the other agent's going to be doing quote-unquote busy work because they can't utilize that agent because it's sitting in some like hold area, because we'll get the same agent back in October. So my guess is they'll be able to clear as well. But again, Tuesdays and Wednesdays are our slowest days of the week.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
So they could clear in Tucson and come here, or clear here and go to Tucson? Or...
They can, the way it works, if they want to enter the country, they can clear at any port of entry. We're a user fee, so a lot of times they'll clear in Tucson. They can fly direct to Phoenix, clear there, and then hop over to Scottsdale. That's the old days. The new days is they just come direct here.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions? Okay, thank you. Number 14, discussion and input regarding public outreach programs and planning projects. Staff contact, Sarah.
Thank you, Chair and Commissioners. I'll provide an update on some outreach programs and some of the planning projects. Kind of catch us up here too. Some of it seems long ago, but we'll still kind of hit on some of those. There's no new news on Phoenix Metroplex at this point in time. For some of the pilot briefing and outreach, I mean, we've heard kind of some of the rumblings about the flight training thing, so that's how we implement it. I think that you mentioned that, Chair Bernowski, about meeting with new flight training businesses too as they come on board and making sure that they're familiar, educating them about some of our noise abatement procedures. So, in fact, with the new one on board, I had a great conversation with the new flight training business too, and we went over several different details about our noise abatement plan too. So that was kind of an idea that came up. We're going to also add that to the permitting process too, just so it's clear and that it is something that they're aware of when they start conducting their business here. And we'll continue our usual outreach and briefings with that. For voluntary curfew outreach, those are operations that happen after 10 p.m. or before 6 a.m. Again, it's voluntary is the key word, but we do try to proactively inform operators or ask them to operate outside those hours. If I get a complaint and we get them, I send out a voluntary curfew letter to them. So here's kind of the rundown for the last few months. I sent out 7 letters in February, 10 in March, 9 in April, and 12 in May. So those were some late times.
Now, speaking of that, do they, I know touch and goes aren't permitted, but are they, do you know if folks are doing full end, full stop, and taxi back, or?
Chair and Commissioners, yes, that is something too. That's a point of clarification that, because touch and goes are a prohibition, there are other types of procedures that can be performed at the airport that, like a full stop taxi back, that is not a prohibition. So, while we still try to advocate for them not to operate after the late hours, early hours, that's not a technical prohibition. So that's kind of a point of clarification, especially with some of the noise complainers, because, it's hard to know. It looks like a touch and go when it in fact may not be. And that's, if I do get a complaint, that's part of the research that goes into that, to kind of clarify that. So we do that as well. Another facet that we do here is monitor property development through some of the planning departments. The rundown for that for the last few months is there were 2 projects in February, 4 in March, 1 in April, and 1 in May that are taking place within the airport influence area. Some of the media, social media, and listservs, we're kind of making a concerted effort now to kind of beef up our social media. Just to kind of give you an update, we had 668 followers on Instagram now, 830 followers on Twitter. We're hoping to kind of keep at it and build up. There was a time where we kind of, took it down a notch just when all this COVID was happening, and it didn't seem quite right to be sending out a lot of things. So we're back ramping up, sharing our projects and different information that we can send out. We're sending out listserv notices, rates and fee changes. There were some construction project updates and any other topics that are relevant. On the media front, there were a couple of articles you may have read on the CARES Act federal grant funding. There was one on airport noise, and I think it was pretty much a fair article at that point. Hopefully you got a chance to read it. And then also on just that we're taking reservations again, that our meeting rooms are open. We're working on a new webpage too, just on an FAQ on flight training, so thank you for your question. That's actually exactly where we're going to. That webpage will be more of an FAQ on educating residents about some of the different procedures and what's commonplace for flight trainer operations too, because I know that's hard if you're not familiar with flight training, what some of those procedures are and what you can expect. So working on that with some flight training groups out here to put a webpage together. And then this seems a long time ago, but Carmen and I were actually at the Schedulers and Dispatchers Convention in North Carolina. That was timed about when this whole COVID thing, there was mutterings all through the convention of it happening. So needless to say, it was kind of a different conference. I think there were some positives that we could draw from being in there. Definitely attendance was low, but we did get a chance to meet with a lot of, there was some extra time to meet with a lot of the people that were participating. So although it was different, I think that it was still a very positive thing for us to be able to interact with that. But yeah, it was just interesting. They actually ended up canceling the last day of that convention while we were there, which didn't really impact our exhibit, but for the presenters and some of the sessions, they were actually canceled. So we'll see what the future holds for those. We also hosted a tour for 10 people from Spanish Forks, Utah, and they just really wanted to learn about our airport and specifically about our airport. So we kind of took them around and explained how it works over here at Scottsdale Airport. And as Aviation Director Gary Mascaro said, we're compiling the outreach plan. We should be starting in the next few days just to alert everybody, our users and potential users, about the service hour changes for U.S. Customs Service. With that, unless there's any questions, that concludes my report.
If I may add a few things to Sarah's report on construction stuff. Even though everything's going on with COVID-19, we have a lot of development activity at this airport. We have a hangar that's almost complete up in the north end in the air park. That's out of what we call, I believe it's Gate 5. It's close to Signature West. It's probably about an $8 million facility. We have several large hangars, about 15 to 20,000 square foot hangars out of Gate 2, which is on the south end of the facility, and the air park as well. That's just about complete as well for our aircraft parking. And they're also going to increase the weight of that taxi lane that's out in the air park, which is again is private property, to accommodate larger aircraft to go in and out of that gate, which is wonderful for us. And then we have our third FBO. Obviously, with everything going on, there was going to be an event for the tilt-ups and things going on. It just kind of died out, but they did tilt up the walls, and I think they actually completed the hangar wall tilt today. So if you come on this airport or you drive around or fly around, take a look, because their hangar has the walls are up. So that's pretty exciting, and they're still moving forward with around the January timeframe opening. Of course, they're trying to go as quick as possible, but January timeframe. And they're also already in discussions. If you recall, this commission, they have 3 phases they're required to do. They're already in talks about rolling right into phase 2 with a bunch more hangars, which is fantastic for us. So, sorry to interrupt. Thank you, Sarah. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay. Number 15, administrative report from the aviation director regarding the status of pending aviation-related items. Gary Mascaro.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. For our new commissioner, one of the items that we bring forward to you is just an update on items that, say, this airport commission makes recommendations on per the code, and whatever happened, the end result at the council, because sometimes those questions are asked. So the first sheet is those items. We do it on an annual basis, and we will clean this list up as soon as the end of the year occurs, and we'll start all over again. As you can see, there's not too much on there at this point. You will see on the second page of it the 3 items that you guys just approved. So that will be updated next month, and it's planning on going to City Council on consent for all 3 on July 1st. So feel free to watch the City Council meeting. The next one is aviation-related items to Planning Commission, Design Review Board, or City Council, and these projects may be on airport, have taxi lane, which is the private property access, have high implications, or be noise sensitive. So another thing we implemented several years ago is to be able to track all of that. With the boom and bust of everything going, we want to focus on obviously items that are in the air park or hangar related, but we also want to focus on any noise sensitive issues, apartments going up, homes going up, and what's going on. The city code is very clear. If there's an item or a zoning change or a general plan change that is noise sensitive, as defined by our Part 150 noise study, this item has to be brought to this commission for recommendation before it goes to even the planning commission and then over to city council. So that's this list right here. You can see the updates. I'll be happy to answer any questions if you have any on any of these.
And the official new guy. Appreciate that.
Thank you, Commissioner McDermott.
Any other questions? Thank you, Gary. And finally, discussion of possible action to modify the Airport Advisory Commission meeting schedule and commission item calendar.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. As always, we have this item. This is the time and the ability for this board to make any adjustments to the schedule as needed. As you know, with the COVID impacts going on right now, the boards and commissions for the city council is limiting the commission and board meetings to absolutely as needed only. And with that being said, plus the fact it's the summertime and we typically take the summer off anyway, this staff would like to recommend to you guys if you'd be willing to remove July and August off the list, and we'll shoot for September, and hopefully everything is back to normal. But of course, as you know, we need to take an action.
Yeah, so there is a motion to,
Well, I'll make the motion.
oh, well, we're looking for a motion
I
to
would
change
move
the
that
calendar.
we postpone the July and August 2020 meetings and again see each other in September.
Chairman Solidoy, I'm sorry, Commissioner Solidoy, seconds.
Okay. We have a move and a second for eliminating the July, August meetings for now. And we do a roll call.
Commission Chair Larry Bernowski,
Yes.
Commission Vice Chair John Barry,
Aye.
Commissioner Bradbury,
Aye.
Commissioner John Seligoy,
Aye.
Commissioner Corey Little,
Aye.
Commissioner Kaplan,
Aye.
Commissioner Charles McDermott.
Okay. So our next meeting will be in September in some form or fashion to be determined.
Hopefully here.
Yeah. And one more action is a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Chair, you do skip that sometimes, but that's okay. One item that we have before that is the future agenda items, and this is where if a particular commissioner may have something that they're interested in bringing forward or talking about or having the staff talk about, this item can be brought up at this time, and there would have to be a vote of a majority to get it actually on the agenda. So that's the purpose of that, for the new guy, as Mr. McDermott said.
So any other new items to add, suggestions? Okay, none taken. So we'll try adjourn again. And, and we'll, I guess, take the roll call vote, or we're just yays?
Need a motion and a second,
Yeah.
and then we have to do the,
Commissioner Barrow,
Commissioner Solidoy, seconds.
Good.
former chairman.
Commission Chair Larry Bernowski,
Yay?
Commission Vice Chair John Barry,
Aye.
Commissioner Bradbury,
Aye.
Commissioner John Sullivan,
Aye.
Commissioner Corey Little, Commissioner Corey Little,
Fellas,
Commissioner Liz Kaplan,
Aye.
Sorry, aye. This is Corey, aye.
and Commissioner Charles McDermott.
Good. Thank you. So meeting is adjourned, and have a safe summer. See you in September.
Thank you.
Whatever, see you.